When I was a kid, like a lot of other kids in the 90s, I think, I had a mild obsession with ninjas. In particular, I was a big fan of the American Ninja series of movies by Canon Films, which were a constant presence at the video rental stores in my town, and still pretty cool movies to this day, if you like action schlock. And of course, I'd play any video game that so much as even made mention of ninjas. Classic stuff like Ninja Gaiden, Shinobi, Ninja Commando, and of course, TMNT. They were all great games, and they all featured ninjas as the unstoppable, ass-kicking machines that would run headlong into danger, slashing and bashing up hordes of bad guys, and this was what ninjas were to me at the time. Then my whole world changed when I first opened up a gaming magazine and saw an ad for an upcoming ninja game called Tenchu Stealth Assassins, a game that reportedly was going to feature more true-to-life ninja action. You wouldn't be an unstoppable killing machine armed to the teeth and annihilating everything in sight, but instead you'd be a living shadow, relying on cunning, stealth, and patience in order to quickly and quietly eliminate your enemies before slinking back into the darkness from whence you came. The concept was mind-blowing for the 11-year-old version of myself, and when I finally got my hands on Tenchu, it immediately became one of my all-time favorite PS1 games. It was perfect, but that was 25 years ago. And gaming has come a long way since then, so I decided to go back to this game recently and see if it still has the ninja magic that it used to. Tenchu is an interesting game for a number of reasons, one of them being that this was the first game ever developed by Acquire, probably best known these days for the Octopath Traveler series and Akiba's Trip, but for the longest time all of their games were centered around feudal Japan, ninjas, and samurai. And for a first attempt, it's obvious that there was a clear vision for Tenchu. To the best of their ability, Acquire was going to make a ninja game that made you feel as though you actually were a ninja, out on missions to assassinate high-profile targets and acquire key intel for your masters. In this case, we get to play as Azuma Ninja Warriors Rikimaru and Ayame in service to the powerful but just Lord Goda. All of the missions you go on are in service to him in one form or another. You'll be killing corrupt merchants and government officials, rescuing his daughter, Princess Kiku, as well as taking out rival ninja clans and other operatives who pose a threat to Lord Goda's dominion, ultimately pitting you against literal demons and masters of hell who have designs on taking over Japan and presumably the world. So while the story of Tenchu starts out simple enough, it does eventually take you to some more radical places, and it introduces us to a lot of characters that we'd be seeing more of in future games, including the very badass Onikage, one of the few recurring villains in the series and a rival for Rikimaru. He's kind of like if you crossed a ninja with a member of a Norwegian black metal band, which is pretty cool. The gameplay of Tenchu is fairly straightforward and honestly didn't change very much across its many sequels. In each mission, you'll have a specific objective, usually assassinating a target, but there are some missions that change things up a bit, challenging you to get from one end of an enemy checkpoint to another, for example. Some of the stages are wide open and allow you to head directly to your target if you really want to, while others set you on a more linear path, forcing you into confrontations with enemies along the way. You can simply run up on them and start hacking and slashing, but the real fun of Tenchu is waiting for the perfect moment to strike, catching your enemies when they're unaware, and slitting their throats. You can always tell when an enemy is near and what their status is by looking at your ninja sense gauge next to your life bar. It'll tell you if the enemy has their guard down, if they're on alert, or if they've spotted you. It's only when their guard is down that you can execute a stealth kill, and if you are spotted, don't worry too much about it. Just find a good hiding spot, and in no time at all, your enemies will forget you were ever even there. It's not like a Hitman game, for example, where once your enemies are aware of your presence, they remain on high alert for the duration of the mission. Nope, the enemies here have the memory of goldfish, which makes them some pretty easy targets if you don't mind waiting a minute for their back to be turned. The game definitely encourages you to go for as many stealth kills as possible though, tallying them up at the end of each stage along with some other stats to give you a ranking, with Grandmaster being the highest. Get that and you'll be rewarded with lots of cool bonus items to take with you on your next mission. And these include pretty standard stuff like shurikens and smoke bombs, to more radical ninja magic spells such as instantly disguising yourself as an NPC or spitting some red hot ninja fire. But without a doubt, the most important item in the game is your trusty grappling hook that you'll need to traverse each stage. Otherwise, your mobility would be greatly hampered, because despite being ninja warriors, Rikimaru and Ayame's movement can be pretty clumsy at times. Not exactly the smooth and fluid motion you'd expect from masters of the shinobi arts. And it has to be said that your greatest adversary in Tenchu isn't Onikage or the King of Hell himself, Lord Mayo, but instead it's the camera. You'll be fighting with that thing way more than any of the enemies you'll face. In fact, that's the thing that'll get you spotted and killed in this game most often. The unruly camera and the rather stiff controls, making it easy to lose track of enemies or get yourself stuck somewhere. I always died most often during the boss battles, as these are just straight up one-on-one fights, and that's not really your forte in this game. Again, going back to the Hitman series, where if you can get the drop on them, you simply kill your target when they're unaware. Here though, despite how stealthy you may have been all throughout the stage, you always end up running right up to your target, announcing your presence, and engaging in a duel, which totally defeats the purpose of the whole stealth assassin thing. I'm not going to talk too much about the graphics in Tenchu, because I think it's fair to say that a lot of these earlier fully 3D games haven't aged very well. They're pretty primitive looking, and that's to be expected. But I will say that I still love the character designs, and there are a variety of locations to explore, and the developers did their very best to create a bit of ambience with their designs, which is helped along greatly by the soundtrack, with each stage having a unique BGM that ranges from kind of peppy and upbeat to downright creepy and foreboding, but it all sounds really good and complements the tone the game is going for very well. In fact, that rings true for the whole series. They were never the most graphically impressive games, and the gameplay never really changed very much, but the sound design was always fantastic. So, going back to my original question, does Tenchu Stealth Assassins hold up today as a great game? And honestly, the answer is no. I still love it because I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I still have the skills needed to work around the camera and the controls, but there have been much better stealth action games released in the past couple of decades. Thief, Hitman, Assassin's Creed, even sticking with the Tenchu series, new players would probably enjoy the sequels on the PS2 a lot more, or better yet, Tenchu Z on the Xbox 360, which lets you create your own ninja, and it featured some really cool multiplayer. This first game is a relic of the past, and I guess that's probably where it should stay. But I'll never forget that time in my life when I was a merciless shadow warrior, a master of the ninjutsu arts, the silent servant of justice.
Sure, the ninja needs to sneak up on some of that dog poop in the backyard.
Anyway, it's Tenchu Stealth Assassins, and despite all of its flaws, it still holds a special place in my heart.